This question is about finding the mean for group data. And before I get into a solution to this particular question, I want to take just a minute to explain why the process that we do makes sense. And to think about that, let's look at, so this is the list of number of losses for the NCAA men's basketball champions from 1939 to 2012. This tells me that 3 of those teams lost either 10 or 11 games. We don't know exactly how many were lost by each team. Maybe all 3 lost 10, maybe 3 all lost 11. We don't know. Let's just guess and say that 2 of them lost 10 and 1 lost 11. If that were the case, and we had all the data listed out for the number of losses by every team, these 3 would contribute 31 to the sum in the numerator from the mean formula, where we're adding up all the losses. But we don't know for sure that they went 10, 10, and 11. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to say, if all these teams lost either a 10 or 11, we can guess that on average they lost maybe 10 and a half. And so we would pretend that those 3 teams lost 10 and a half each. Now we know that can't happen in real life, but we're just averaging here, in which case we would do 3 times 10 and a half, which would be the same thing as adding 10 and a half 3 times, and we get 31 and a half. That would be the number of losses we'd be adding for those 3 teams. So when we get down to the situation like here, where we have 28 teams with either 2 or 3 losses, even if we had that information, we don't want to add up 28 different 2s or 3s when we can get a pretty good estimate by saying, on average, probably those 28 teams lost about 2.5 games. And instead of adding up all the numbers of losses, we'll multiply 28 by 2.5 and get a pretty good estimate on the total number of losses for those teams. So our first category is losses either 0 or 1, and there were 13 teams that did that. So we will guess that on average, they lost a half game between them, or each, so we'd multiply 13 by a half to estimate the total number of losses for those teams. Next, of the teams that lost either 2 or 3 games, we would estimate that on average they lost 2.5, and there was 28 of them, so we get 28 times 2.5. Next, there were 18 teams that lost either 4 or 5. On average, that would be 4.5, so we'll add up 18 4.5 lost teams. 9 teams lost either 6 or 7, so we'll add up 9 6.5 lost teams. 3 lost 8 or 9, so we'll add up 3 8.5 lost teams. And 3 lost 10 or 11, so we'll add in 3 10.5 lost teams. Now what we have there is an estimate for the total number of losses by all of those teams. Now if we add up the frequencies, 13 plus 28 is 41, plus 18 is 59, plus 9 is 68, plus 3 is 71, and 3 more makes 74. So there were 74 total teams. We have an estimate for the total number of losses from those 74 teams. You divide by the number of teams, and what should pop out is the mean number of losses. And that works out to be about 3.7. So there is our estimate for the mean number of losses by the NCAA champions in the men's tournament from 1939 to 2012.